So if somebody were to ask you about buying an e-bike, their first e-bike, what would be some of the mistakes you'd warn them away from? Well, stick around. That's what we're going to get into today. Well, hello again, Internet. Welcome back to the channel. Yeah, like I say, if somebody were to ask you, I want to buy an e-bike, what would you tell them to be aware of? What would be the top 5 things you'd tell them to be aware of? Well, I think probably the biggest thing that I would have to tell them to watch out for would be impulse buying. You see, how does this sound as far as a typical story? Well, my neighbors got e-bikes, and I know some friends that got e-bikes, and they look pretty cool. And they got matching helmets and matching outfits, and man, I bet I would look great in one of them. So I got to go out and get an e-bike right now. So they run out and get an e-bike. And then what ends up happening? Well, it's sitting in the corner somewhere, not being used at all, collecting dust, and the person has lost interest in it. Well, how could you kind of maybe suggest that they avoid that? What's some mistakes that they can make? Because I can tell you, Michelle and I both made some mistakes when we bought our first e-bike. Michelle, she bought hers first. She wanted to go out and get one, and so she got one from a reputable company. But it wasn't what she needed. It wasn't up to what she was going to be using it for, and she didn't have no clue she was going to be wanting to do more than what she ended up doing on that. And you know, there's some real differences in e-bikes and regular bikes, because look at the price tags on them. Look at the price tags. You know, they're pretty expensive, and so you want to know that you're getting. Thought I heard a brake pad rubbing there. I think we'll go up this way here today. You know, you don't want to go back. My dad always told me, he'd say, son, I'm too broke to buy cheap. And what he meant by that is he didn't want to go out and buy twice. I'd like to say I listened to my dad and really heeded what he said, but I got 2 e-bikes. So what are some of the mistakes that people will make? Like I said, that number 1 is going to be impulse buying. You know, you have got to check it at the door as far as that impulse stuff, and you need to kick in the common sense, the thoughtful side of your brain needs to get engaged for something like that. All right. And what kind of questions might you be asking? Okay, so we're going to get our thinking side of our brain going here. All right, well, what are we supposed to think about? Well, you're going to have to investigate a little bit. Know what specs mean when they're talking about a belt drive or a chain drive, a single speed or a geared, either 7-speed, 10-speed, whatever it is. Know what hydraulic brakes versus mechanical disc brakes means. Scoot over for this car coming by. Know what the difference is between, you know, a fat tire bike and a regular tire bike. All right, you need to know what all these things mean. That's the first thing you got to start at. Now, what else do you need to do? Well, you better recognize right off the bat as you're trying to decipher what all this stuff means. You know, we tend to look on the websites of the manufacturers, and that can be a mistake when you look at their, let's say, their stated mileage. You know, they'll state you can go 60 miles on this bike, and the reality of it is most people are going to get about 30 miles out of that. You know, you can pretty much figure what they say, you're not going to get that much. That's in prime, perfect conditions is the only time you're going to get that much. Speed is going to be the same thing. But I'll tell you this, the battery and the motor, if you're looking at an actual e-bike, the battery and the motor is where it's at. Everything else is just bicycle. Everything else is just bicycle. The brakes and all that stuff, you know, the chains, the gears, the frames, the tires, that's all bicycle. But the frame, or the battery and the motor. And you want to figure how far you want to go when you're typically riding it. I think you're going to double that at least, because I can just about guarantee you you're going to want to ride it more than what you think you're going to want to ride it. You go a lot farther than what you might think you're going to go when you're riding an e-bike. Now, what's some of the other things you need to kind of watch out for? Mistakes that you can make when you're buying it. Well, this buying cheap to see if you like it, none of these e-bikes are cheap. You're going to be into any of them for a good $1,000. I'm going to say anyway, and it's really realistically going to be a lot closer to about $2,000. All right, so don't get the cheapest thing and then have to go out and buy another one. That would be a mistake that I see a lot of people make. Probably the number one mistake that I see made, you know, I think we're going to go down there and we're going to check this place out now. It's been a couple of weeks since I have been down here. So let's go take a look at it. See what it's looking like. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, and a lot of people make it, is they buy a bike that is just too big for them. And that is really, really, really common. These 26-inch bikes, 26-inch tire bikes, fat tires, you know, that doesn't look like it's a very big bike because of the proportions of it. We're not used to looking at them great big tires like that, so it looks a lot smaller than what it actually is. But a 26-inch fat tires, them tires are just about as tall as my 29-inch here. And I'm not a short guy. I don't know, I'm 5'11", something like that maybe. I don't know exactly. I never measure. I'm this high, and that's when that's situated right above my head. So, but I see a lot of people that have got a bike that is way too big for them. That's another huge, huge mistake that I would tell people to really veer away from. Yeah, they're splitting up the lots here. Getting them split up, ready to bring in, start building some houses on. So, yeah. What else do you have to ask? Well, where are you going to ride it? What are you going to ride it on? Are you going to ride it on pavement like this right here, old country roads that don't have a lot of people on it? Or are you going to ride it on paved greenways, gravel rail trails, or mountain bike trails, hard trails? You know, you need to figure out exactly where you're going to want to ride it. You're going to have to want to figure out if you're going to be able to transport it somewhere. That's going to probably become pretty important to you if you really like it, because you're going to run out of areas to ride right where you live. So I'd be considering that, because then you can consider a folding bike if you needed to, or how you're going to end up, you know, moving your bikes around. That's That's another biggie to consider. What else do we have to consider? Well, where are you going to buy this bike at? Oh, what do we care? Once we get the bike, we got the bike. Well, you know, you can get, let's go down and take a look and see what they got down here. You can probably get more bang for your buck, or more bike for your buck, purchasing online. But when you purchase online, you may not have anybody that's willing to help you with it. You might have to be able to do everything that you have to do with it yourself. That could be a problem to some people. So you want to consider where you're going to get it. You know, if you go to a brick and mortar store, you're going to have a little support there. Most of the time. Most of the time. Now, if you're handy about what you're doing, yeah, they're about the only changes they've made around here is they're splitting up the property lots here, getting them split up, but it won't be too long before they start putting them sticks together. It won't be long. I see they're getting the boxes in and everything here. So, but your brick and mortar stores could be a real savior to you if you're not real inclined to be able to fix things on your own. So that would be something else that you would really want to go ahead and consider. Again, what are you doing? What, you know, along with where are you riding it? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to take it on to get back in shape? Are you going to use it to commute back and forth to work? Are you going to use, or is it socializing? Is it a social club for you? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with any of them things. So, but let's see, where do we want to go here? Now, I'm trying to decide if we want to hook down to the left or hook back to the right and go around that way there. But yeah, you want to decide what it is you're going to be doing with a bike, why you want to be riding a bike. Where should I go? Where should I go? I think I'll hook back to the right here. Yeah, let's go back down to the right. Let's go back to the right. So, where was we at there? You know, we'd talked about how far we're going to go. I think we've already talked about that, but you know, you're going to figure you're going to want to go a lot farther. And I'll mention this about that going a lot farther. You can always, if you decide you're not going as far as what you wanted to, you're not hurting nothing by having a bigger battery. If you decide you want to go further, you're going to be hurting a little bit. You know, a lot of these bikes nowadays are integrated batteries. And so with an integrated battery, you have to buy it from the manufacturer. You can't get an outside sourced battery, and they may not have them in stock. And on top of that, they're probably going to be pretty expensive. So, you know, get something that's going to be bigger than what you're going to want it to be in the beginning, in the very beginning. So, what else might we have here? You know, put down in the comments what else we would have. You know, how far you're going to go. That was a mistake in the battery, and the power was a mistake that I made. My ECOTRIC is a 36 volt. I forget how many amp hours it is, but it's good for about right at 27 miles. So I had to go and buy another battery for it. So, you know, that was a mistake that I made. Michelle made basically the same mistake. You know, and I'd like to see other people avoid that. Now, do I not like my first bike? No, actually I like it real well, but I don't take it out for longer rides. You know, if I'm going out 30 miles, even though I have the extra battery, I take my Trek bike with me. I take my Trek bike with me on that. So, what else have we got? Let's gotta get on bias there. That mailbox out there pretty close. I didn't want to be pulling out off of that mailbox when the car was coming by, or at least a truck. But yeah, I guess a screwdriver or a, you know, let's go back and see what that is. Let's see what we got right there, because that looked like it could be a tire tool to fix a punched tire. No, but it's a decent screwdriver. So we'll pop it in the bag. You know, I never used to do anything like that, like stop and pick up something like that or even look at it on the road. And a good cowboy friend of mine told me he always does that. And I asked him why. He said, because one time he seen a sock thrown out and he stopped to check it. And there was a bunch of money in it. And he even took it to the police. They had no idea where it come from. Wasn't listed as stolen or anything like that. He ended up, like, I say a bunch of money. It was several $100s. This was a long time ago. Several $100, close to $1,000 was a lot of money then. So, okay. So the final thoughts. If we're talking to somebody, what, you know, to avoid a mistake, what is that mistake? Think. Don't buy on impulse. Think about what you're doing. Think about what it is you want. Think about how much you're going to spend on it. Think about how much you're going to use it. Think about the return you're going to get on your investment that you're making. But think. That's the best I can tell anybody. Think through what you're about to do. Then you should have a pretty positive experience with purchasing e-bike. Heck, anything. Hey, I want to go ahead and cut it off. I want to see about going down along this field here a little bit. So that's going to do it for me this time, Internet. We'll catch up with you on the next one. Hey, until the next time, this is Southern E-Biking telling you, number one, subscribe and hit that bell. But number two, hey, stay safe, God bless, and keep the wheels turning. Once again, we're out.